Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Today on the show, Ari Melber is not having Bill Barr's excuses for his treatment of the Mueller Report. Bill Barr was on Bill Maher, and it was hilarious. Then Richard Ojeda, one-time politician or politics hopeful, very progressive person. He's on Rebel headquarters right now for TYT, and he has an excellent take on the recent news that Newsmax has been dropped from AT&T U-verse as well as DirecTV. And then the free net, resources that are available to you right now for all sorts of things. It's going to be something we talk about more and more as the show grows. And I just want to make you aware of things that you don't have to pay for. We are so often told in our highly unregulated capitalism poisoned society that if you want anything of value, you must pay money for it. It's not so. Ton of free stuff. We're starting it off a little bit light, a little bit fun. It's just things that you can use for free. All right, let's get right to the meat and potatoes. Meat and potatoes? What are those? Meat and potatoes. That would be AG Barr's recent interview. So, Attorney General Bill Barr was on Bill Maher's show, and the takedown of his handling of the Mueller report by Ari Melber is something just beautiful to watch. Let's have a look.
All right, we've also been telling you about some of that breaking news all morning. Last night at midnight, AT&T's DirecTV removed Newsmax from all of its systems, including DirecTV Stream and also U-verse.
Meantime, there's a long list of liberal news networks that are still in the systems, and they get paid the same fees that Newsmax is asking for.
A more blatant example of politically motivated censorship.
This is
hard to imagine.
Very much
and this
not
coming as we have
what we were intending to show. Good gosh. All right, let's try that again. AG Barr, former AG Barr, was on Bill Maher. Here's Aria Melber's video on the topic.
First draft of history, it's not always correct, especially when the government lies to you. Which brings us now tonight to a pivotal period in our recent era, the conclusion of that highly anticipated Mueller probe. You follow the news, you're watching the news right now, so you may remember that whole period. Different Trump figures went down. They were searched, indicted, convicted. And then Mueller turned in his detailed report to the DOJ, but it did not immediately go out to the public. Many expected the report to put some heat on the administration and pressure then Attorney General Barr to release it rather than simply hide it.
You remember that period in American history? I mean, it was just a couple of years ago. It was 2019, but I remember feeling like a shred of hope. Just a shred. And it wasn't hope that that suddenly everything would be better. It was just that we would find out that America was not such a Potemkin village. It really is. It only laid bare that the half-assed efforts of moderates and people that have been big supporters of the status quo aren't going to cut it. They simply don't cut it. And in fact, they don't know how to handle actual corruption. I'll quit interrupting. Here's the rest.
But he had a different trick up his sleeve, a middle ground that actually matters in the news tonight, and I'll explain why. Barr infamously scooped the entire Mueller report with his own misleading summary. It was so clearly off the mark that Mueller took the rare step of writing Barr, nominally his supervisor, to call out the deceit about the true nature and context of the entire report that he spent so long creating and investigating and writing.
He wrote him a letter. He also gave him the opportunity to do what he did. In his recommendations Robert Mueller, was very clear about the current DOJ policy of not indicting a sitting president. One thing Donald Trump was right about, and I do try to give credit where it's due, one thing Trump was right about was this attitude of, oh, it simply isn't done. That's no way to regulate corrupt people. They're not going to care about what is and isn't done. They don't play by the same rules. Kenneth Starr and his going after Clinton, that had nothing to do with the business of running the country and everything to do with they think they can get away with it. They think they can use the system for their means, not for its intended purpose, but for their means. If we are going to have powerful organizations in this country, they must be well regulated. That means not relying on, well, current policy suggests. Current policy says. That's their internal playbook. They need to have laws and regulations that are firm. Either you can be the check and the balance, or you can't. If you are in the Justice Department, you can't say, well, listen, he's a sitting president. That means politics is involved, and I don't want to interfere with politics. You're the one that's supposed to be keeping him in check. We only have this problem, Mueller, because he didn't have the guts to acknowledge the fact that it was a corrupt administration. And there did appear to be collusion. Let's get to that little chunk of this. By the way, I see some comments. I'm excited to read them. We'll do that in between segments.
Now, that was then. This is now. Long time since then, especially the way the news has been lately. But Barr hasn't faced much serious questioning about what he did. That's partly because, like many people in and around government, he tries to stick to friendly environments when he wants to get his message out, Fox News appearances, and, of course, the occasional legally required deposition, like when he went in and testified to the January 6th committee and under oath suddenly started talking about why Trump was a liar and lied about the election. But here's what's different right now, if you haven't seen it yet. Barr just went on Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO and took some questions and tried to spin his spin on the Mueller report, claiming that that whole unusual PR stunt with his cover letter was somehow, and this is false, he claimed the only choice he had. And then he blamed Mueller for how the report came in.
I said, you have to give me a report that I can make public quickly. It has to be redacted. Because the day you give me the report, everyone's going to be speculating.
You have to give it this way, or people will speculate, OMG. Two problems there. One, Mueller's team did prepare a version for public release. And even if the DOJ wanted to take any time for an extra review, that, of course, is the version that essentially came out later. There were some redactions and some fights over it, but 90+% of it was what they gave him. And second, Barr is claiming that public speculation is the reason that he, the powerful attorney general, had to rush out his take. Now, that is false. The DOJ stays quiet or waits on many different topics or cases while the public in a free society speculates. And the press sometimes speculates.
That face. Ari Melber has, when I pause him, has a tendency to make a face that is exactly how I feel. I look like somebody's tired uncle. To be fair, that's accurate. But that's how I feel when I look at the behavior of these people.
And that does not create any obligation for anyone in government to do anything, nor should it. Public speculation is not a legal or logical reason for Barr to rush anything. And boy, did he rush. He rushed it right out this weekend. Let me give you one example. There is plenty of speculation about how Jeffrey Epstein died in a federal prison. Who was in charge? Bill Barr. That was on Bill Barr's watch. And you don't see Mr. Barr, while in government or out of government, rushing out a ton of information, transparency, or claims about that mysterious and controversial death just because of, quote, speculation.
Ari Melber with the deep cuts, with the savage strokes. Good Lord. I mean, there's evidence to suggest Trump might have been on Mr. Epstein's list, and he is using this as a somewhat, what do you call it? Somewhat darkly humorous way of pointing out when Bill Barr did not care about speculation. Fair enough. Man.
We call bull, Mr. Barr. Now, in this new interview, Mr. Maher pushes back, and Mr. Barr continues with his spin and defends how he issued his own purported legal conclusions that had very real consequences and really scooped the Mueller report.
I read he did give you that.
No, he did not, okay? So when he came in, and by the way, there was no pressure for him to give in on any day certain. He could have taken his time and redacted it. He came in, and they gave us on Friday the report unredacted. It was illegal to put it out. I felt that I had to say something to give the bottom line of what he decided. Number one, I said he found there was no collusion.
Not so.
It's like going out and announcing a verdict. I didn't regale the whole trial, but I said, he said there was no collusion.
Well, you framed it as he was innocent, and then everything else had to be argued against that.
And then
he said we can't come to the conclusion that he didn't obstruct justice, and you said he didn't obstruct justice.
Okay, so first of all, Bill Barr is not somebody that I think is worth watching, personally. He's an anti-vax weirdo, and I'm not a fan. But it's a fair question he asks. Also, the no collusion. Robert Mueller went out of his way to say he does not absolve Trump of that charge. He's simply saying in his investigation, here is what he found. And there's a massive difference there. Further, it can't be stressed enough that the main takeaway from that report was that he said there was no reason an investigation could not be opened into Trump the moment he left the White House. That, if you were going to be Bill Barr in his fantasy world here, writing just the summary for the public, that was the main thing. Investigated for what? Obstruction of justice. What did Trump do after he left the White House? Well, according to our Department of Justice, apparently he obstructed justice when it came to retrieving the documents he took with him. Insane.
You know, Barr is being tricky there, and this is important for the record in the world. Barr knows any call about presidential law breaking in this type of probe goes to Congress. It doesn't go to the president's own appointed AG. That's why Ken Starr sent his famous findings to Congress. And then, as we know from all of the recent impeachments, Congress can decide whether or not to impeach. Indeed, it's worth remembering that Democratic Congress declined to impeach on the evidence in the Mueller report. And then, of course, Trump did other things that led to his historic 2 impeachments.
Should have only had one. And it should have been the impeachment that immediately followed the Mueller report. And it should have been successful. I realize, given the politics of America, that wasn't going to happen. Still, that's what should have happened in a functioning country.
Now, Mueller was working along the same lines as Starr. Evidence of presidential lawbreaking, going to Congress, and there was a contrast here in what he said and what Barr tried to spin. Now, Barr's misleading approach is also about more than those legal nuances. And I want to get this down for the record tonight, too, because it matters.
All right,
Mr. Barr used his power to mislead and to muddy the waters.
Boom.
Now, there's no evidence that he broke any laws. We're not talking about some crime. We are talking about an abuse of the authority that he had in a very lawyerly and devious way.
I don't know that I agree with Ari Melber here. Is that not a crime? Is the abuse of his power not a crime? I don't believe you're immune from obstructing justice if you lead the Justice Department. How many cop shows have you watched where the big twist is, oh my God, apologize, we have a new setup and we're running with it. Where the big twist is that the captain is in on the crime. There was an episode of Columbo that was about that. The boss can do a crime. Barr's statements were misleading. So misleading that Robert Mueller wrote him about it, saying as much. Something else we need to get culturally used to in the United States. You can have a trial even if you're not positive you'll get a conviction. That standard is only upheld when it comes to the rich. I only hear about that when it comes to the rich. If they think they can get some guy that makes $26,000 a year because they found weed in his car, they'll take a gamble. They'll go for it, sure. But if the former Attorney General misled the American public about the contents of a major investigation into the president, well, I'm not sure we could get a conviction, and maybe it's not even a crime. It's no. Bare minimum that should entail an investigation. I realize there are more dangerous fish to fry, but when we forge a new country out of the tatters that is America currently, one of the things we are going to have to reckon with, and one of the things we are going to have to push for, is that behavior right there. If it truly is not against the law, time to talk to lawmakers, time to make a new law. Because we cannot put up with this. You want to know what a real, genuine, non-conspiracy theory cover-up looks like? That's it right there. That is a cover-up. The series of boring press conferences that lie. What can you do about it? I've got great news. Number one, the Justice Department's branches that run out of Washington, that have ties to Washington, have an interest in protecting the power of the powerful. That simple. The smaller scale you get, the more powerful you are to that official. As in, your vote within your state has a lot more influence. Your opinion within your state has a lot more influence than elsewhere. Let me pull this up right now. First of all, there's Merrick Garland. He is a little punk. Second of all, we have 7 states. 7 states that are able to open investigations into the election fraud that occurred in 2020. Guy that was just on screen isn't going to do it. Or if he is going to do it, he is going to focus on as few people as he possibly can. He is going to try to give them as light of charges as he possibly can. He is going to be the very people that got us into this mess. And you might be thinking, oh, Republicans got us into this mess. Nah, Republicans were always honest about who they were. They're awful, but they've been honest about it. Weak Democrats, failing to hold them accountable, got us into this mess. What can you do? You, if you live in one of these states, can contact the Attorney General of that state. Georgia's got a check mark because the district attorney has an investigation open. It's going to be a waste of time to talk to the Attorney General because their response will be, we are investigating Trump and his election interference in Georgia. Michigan's got a green check mark right there because Dana Nessel, the Attorney General of Michigan, said, I've got to answer to my constituents. And my constituents just saw 2022 pass with fake electors, people who tried to undo your vote in 2020 on the ballot. I have to answer to my constituents, so I'm reopening the state investigation into election fraud. Kudos, Dana Nessel. There are 5 more states up there. You're in one of those states. I put a script in the description. You can copy and paste that if you so choose, but I also put their contact links for your Attorney General in the description. Use it. Send him a message, a literal message, saying, hey, your job to protect me. You have failed to. Go do your job. My vote needs to matter. That means people who tried to take it away need to have to respond to law enforcement. It's that simple. Take advantage of that. A pressure campaign, starting here on this humble channel. By the way, we are celebrating 1 month in existence, and we're at 1,500 subscribers. I will not. I will never be able to comprehend a number of people that is greater than fits in a room, other than to say that is one such number, and I'm flattered and delighted. Let's use it. 1,500 people, reliably 200 will see this video. Okay. I've seen the locations. Some of you are from those states. Use that. If you use it, let me know in the comments. We will happily hold you up as a citizen of the day. It does not take millions all at once to make something like this happen, to open a state investigation into Donald Trump's crimes. It takes a few dedicated people who are willing to send a letter. That's followed by a couple of dozen people who heard about that and are also willing to send a letter. That's followed by one representative in some corner of the country getting on TV and giving a speech that sways a bunch more people. And eventually, that snowballs into millions calling for charges. Eventually. And when you look at it in the history book, they will say millions of people rose up and called for charges, which is not an accurate view of how it starts. It starts with you. It does. You have the power, but only if you use it. Have a look at some of the comments. I've been just tickled to see folks on board with the live streams. I love it. Anti-corporatists, you were indeed first, and I congratulate you. Dawned on me. Oh, I'm loving this. Patrick Kibido. Remember Gail from early in Breaking Bad? That's what Garland's speech reminds me of. Oh my gosh. Yes. I wish I could. I'm working on the ability to just pull up clips on the fly. Yes, totally. I know what you're talking about. Very much so. That is 50 days. If it isn't February, those numbers will start to compound sooner. That is 50 days if it isn't February. I have had this channel actually for 11 years, and I used it to upload silly, fun things for friends. But I started doing the old blue background, just giving takes on media on Christmas of last year. I don't really know why. It just felt like it. Well, they think they can't get a conviction because the rich dude will have the dream team, and then write, if I did it. The anti-corporatist. I'm sorry, I think I said your name incorrectly earlier. Well, they think they can't get a conviction because the rich dude will have the dream team, then write, if I did it. Yes, true. And that is why, in my opinion, the culture of believing they can get a conviction needs to be replaced by the culture of believing the crime definitely happened. You're a prosecutor and you believe the crime definitely happened. At a minimum, you must open the investigation. You can't say, we'll never get a conviction, and use that as an excuse for not opening the investigation. The investigation is where you find the evidence. We need to demand more from our justice system, and that in particular is what we should be demanding. Investigate these punks. The reason they do not do it now is, one, because of corruption, obviously, the money changing hands, the positions of power being handed out, but also because they think we're not paying attention. Anytime something awful happens, their defense is to be boring about it and then let as much time pass as they can get away with it. If they get dragged out to do another press conference, same thing. They'll gish gavel. They'll talk about nonsense. Wait for people to stop paying attention, and then move on with their lives. That's how it happens. If they start getting contacted regularly, this may change. Certainly, if it does change, that will be part of it. So I'm hoping that with constant and easy-to-maintain pressure from us, from the group of people that are interested in seeing justice done in the country, that'll get it started. Fun fact about your old pal Jake, used to sell U-verse and DirecTV as part of a sales job. I remember when rumors cropped up that Newsmax was going to be a part of it. I couldn't be happier than I am right now to be on the other side of that saga telling you Newsmax is no longer going to be on U-verse and DirecTV. Ooh, it feels good. Mwah. Just, it's so sweet. Here is IndieWire talking about AT&T dropping Newsmax. As of midnight, January 24, Newsmax TV is no longer available on DirecTV or its DirecTV stream or AT&T U-verse. For context, AT&T owns, in one manner or another, all these things. DirecTV says it's about carriage fees. The conservative-facing cable news channel doesn't believe it. DirecTV, which is a majority-owned by AT&T, dropped pro-Trump channel OAN, One American News, from its channel lineup last April. Also not a surprise. That one also came at the end of a carriage deal. Like Newsmax TV today, OAN accused AT&T of playing politics. The irony. OAN's parent company went so far as to sue AT&T over its choice to not renew the channel. A San Diego court dismissed the central claim. So do bear in mind, these are not, it's not like they're dropping Fox, for example. These are not giants in the media world. These are, impressive for how long they've been around, certainly, but they're little baby channels. So it's not unusual at all, in fact, for AT&T to change its lineup, every couple of quarters. I cannot tell you how many networks there are that only play old TV, for example. And it's just a game of contracts, essentially. Shuffling contracts, whoever's got the most, whoever can say, oh, next quarter we'll get you X many dollars. And the executives in charge make a call. They say, okay, well, if we get X much, we're going to keep it. If we get less than X, we're going to ditch it. It's brutal, but they don't claim to be anything else. You can't blame them. It's that simple. Beyond the bickering, let's look at the numbers. In mid-December, IndieWire published the 2022 to-date rankings by average viewership of all 126 cable channels. At the time, Newsmax TV ranked 56th in primetime. 56th. And they're wondering what happened. This is for a conservative news outlet. AKA, they can say whatever they want happened and it doesn't have to be real. They have no rules applying to them. And they were only 56th, according to Nielsen's Live Plus same-day ratings, a data set that, if anything, disproportionately helps news programming. That put Newsmax below BBC America. Hold on a second. We're going to get back to that. And Disney Junior, and above the NFL Network and Science Channel. All right. Just a moment there. So for the Nielsen ratings, that's a bizarre organization. That organization is responsible for a great deal of the woes in the world. I may do a separate video on them, but in short, the way they measure who's watching what is not something that I think anybody would be comfortable with if they were aware of the details. The details being, for example, when you hear about sweeps week, that refers to the week during which mailers are sent back or are sent out to various households, and the households fill them out and mail them to the person who's going to be doing the measuring, in this case the Nielsen company. And sweeps refers to literally sweeping up all the analog mailers that got sent back to them. It's a method that only gets a certain group of people. And they also extrapolate from there. They say, well, we sent mailers to this many households, and we're going to multiply the results of people who sent those back by the population of an area and say that's what people watch. It's a bizarre way to run things. It's almost a separate thing. But BBC America, okay, Newsmax was getting lower ratings than the British Broadcasting Company's coverage of American events. An organization from another country. That would be like if I complained that I wasn't higher in the algorithm because Al Jazeera gets more views than me when they talk about American news. It's not a good look, Newsmax. It is not a good look. Side note on the NFL Network. The NFL, and in fact football in general, is more or less keeping cable companies alive right now. The NFL Network might have gotten less than Newsmax. The NFL Network's value is very different and should be judged very differently. They are part of multiple packages that get sold to sports fans. And those packages involve, among the NFL Network, various other channels that cover certain teams. If you like college football, there's a package you can buy for that. If you like NFL, there's a package you can buy from that. If you like just the Steelers, there's a package you can buy for that. So on and so forth. So, all in all, looking at this, it's not a surprise Newsmax got cut, particularly when you consider the fact that, yeah, they are a liability. Yeah, they absolutely open up AT&T to lawsuits for things like lying about Dominion. I don't know that Dominion would want to keep picking on a giant like AT&T, but man, they might. It also comes with a giant paycheck if they win. Fellow 24-hour cable news channels Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN were all top 10 channels. Nexstar's news station, Nexstar, which fancies itself the down-the-middle cable news channel, was 85th. So yes, it could be worse. Nexstar owns a bunch of local news stations. They're like Gray or Graham Media. They're the same thing. It's important to note here that Newsmax is available in roughly 25 million fewer homes than the big three cable news channels, which of course impacts overall viewership. That is fair. Availability is a big deal, and it is part of the reason why the internet is booming right now, because it is egalitarian. It's very much open to all. We now have a full year's worth of data, and over the course of a 24-hour day, Newsmax TV averaged 120,000 total viewers. For comparison, the league leader Fox News averaged nearly 1.5 million viewers. When AT&T is looking at that, they are looking at what is essentially the same audience. The folks that are watching Newsmax, I am sure they made the calculation. They're not leaving over Newsmax availability. MSNBC averaged 734,000, and CNN had 565,000. That is delightful to me. I'm glad MSNBC is averaging more than CNN, because CNN's coverage is alarmingly bad most of the time, in my humble opinion. News Nation again brought up the rear with an average of 92,000 viewers across the entire day. Okay, now here is a heck of a hook. However, in the age group considered the key demographic for news programming, viewers ages 25 to 54, Newsmax TV averaged just 1,000 more than News Nation across a 24-hour day. A note on that demographic. The reason that is a valuable demographic is because that's a demographic that is viewed as swayable. If you're in a demographic older than that, it's not that the executives at these companies necessarily think, oh, their views don't matter. No. It's that they think your views are more or less locked in. The truth of that, at least in the outfit I was working for, the truth of that, I question, but it is the reasoning. They're thinking, hey, if you're AT&T, they're not just thinking, can I get this, let's say, 43-year-old to watch X program or Y program? They're thinking, can I get this 43-year-old to install AT&T in their house instead of Comcast? In addition, they're wondering, what is the likelihood that I can upsell them? Back in my time, it would have been a home security system and an internet package and a phone line. What's their disposable income like? So on and so forth. So with Newsmax TV averaging just 1,000 more than News Nation, which also is going to offer them more than Newsmax could have in terms of content and demographics. That's not a very tempting set of numbers. So to hear them complaining is humorous to me. So if you guys know Richard Ojeda, that fella, you cover that new Pegasus book at all? Ooh. Well, I have a gander. Richard Ojeda is a progressive. He ran for office, didn't get it, to my dismay. I can't recall if he was straight up beat by a Republican or if he lost in a primary to a Democrat. I think he was beat in the general election. I'll have to look back into that. But nonetheless, I think he's got, by and large, great takes on things, and he covered Newsmax's meltdown following this release. It is the clip we accidentally played earlier. Here it is as it was meant to be seen on What You Can Do.
All right, we've also been telling you about some of that breaking news all morning. Last night at midnight, AT&T's DirecTV removed Newsmax from all of its systems, including DirecTV Stream and also U-verse.
Meantime, there's a long list of liberal news networks that are still in the systems, and they get paid the same fees that Newsmax is asking for.
A more blatant example of politically motivated censorship is hard to imagine. And this coming as we have all the revelations, thanks to Elon Musk at Twitter, of government-sponsored censorship. Is this
government-sponsored censorship? Just to give you a little insight into the hypnotism going on here, we got to do a side note. The interviewer appears to be conducting the interview from his kitchen. Odd choice. But Twitter's government-sponsored censorship, I think he's referring to the fact that Joe Biden, when he was not the president, when he was merely a candidate, requested that his son's revenge porn get taken down. The nudes that Republicans got their hands on, not nudes of him doing a specific crime to my knowledge, but the pictures of his junk. I think it's hard to argue with that being a reasonable request. Hey, you're participating in a crime, Twitter, by posting revenge porn. Would you stop? That is what this guy is calling government-sponsored censorship. Was it the times the government asked them to also stop breaking laws? I don't know, but he doesn't go into specifics, probably with a darn good reason.
Something being done in league with the White House, with the DNC, we don't know, but we know the facts of the case that Newsmax was asking for fair remuneration, which is exactly the same for the top 75 channels on DirecTV, 22 of which are hardcore left-wing news channels.
There is no hardcore left-wing news channel, unless you're talking about TYT, in which case it has some hardcore left-wingers. A hardcore left-winger, for the record, is just somebody who's really excited about helping people. That's your hardcore left-winger. TYT also has some moderates. TYT is also where some, in my opinion, reprehensible right-wingers got their start. That ain't on these cable packages.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and politically motivated censorship? Since when is dropping a dead weight, failing, pathetic product censorship? It's called free market economics. The thing that Republicans adore when it goes their way, and then they can dominate with monopolies, and when it doesn't go their way, as most often is the case, then they whine and they cry tyranny.
Why is it that only Newsmax is treated like this? It's very clear. It's because Newsmax is growing in popularity, is growing in influence, and they want to shut down a voice that isn't the mainstream lying media, but actually brings the facts to all of our viewers.
And
again, relying on old-timey sales experience. Nope. If it was growing like he suggests they're growing, absolutely not. That would not have been cut. Just say this is a culture of people that watch trends the way other folks watch conventional pornography. They would not have cut it if it had a bright-looking future on their platform.
Out of this basic little conundrum was birthed the real doctrine of Republican policy, corporate welfare. Yes, corporate welfare is the Republican doctrine by which working people should foot all the bills of the Republicans' money. Because after all, Republicans have no skills. They've never labored. It's like asking a newborn child to carry their own weight. Republicans are helpless unless they do nothing and skim 20% off the top. And so they design government to do just that. True. And they take their free lunch money and pay these brain-dead Newsmax snobs to spin cute little fables about how trickle-down economics was ordained by God as the law of the universe. And when DirecTV comes along and pulls the plug and says, guess what? Fairy tales don't pay the bills, all the little right-wingers get misty-eyed and lament in an ununified voice, come save me, government regulations.
It always amazes me how much the left hates transparency and they hate dissenting views.
Just then, these guys, we talked about in this clip how these guys are talking vaguely about things and not doing specifics. Cut to the guy being like, they don't like transparency. We started this by reading you the numbers. And indeed, including the part that puts a little bit of a nicer shine on this, which is that it's not available as widely as some of their competitors. Left loves transparency. The left loves to be discovered to be wrong. Because I'll tell you something else about the left. We love changing our opinion. Because we're grown-ups. We acknowledge that it's generally a good thing to improve. Ridiculous.
Interesting about this kind of move here by DirecTV and AT&T, they're doing it wide open for everyone to see. You see the statistics that Seb laid out. they don't even care because the left has pressured them behind the scenes to say, hey, look, there are some dissenting views out there we just don't like. There's a network that's gaining popularity that people are gravitating toward. They're sick of our lies, and instead they're going to real news outlets like Newsmax. So we have to do something to stop them.
If you think Republicans are about limited government, check that empty cavern behind your forehead. They're about stuffing their own wallets and rigging the system to work for them, period. And for the proof, look no further than Exhibit A. Right now they are cosplaying as fiscal penny pinchers saving America from the debt ceiling. But check yourself into the reality hotel for just a moment, Richard, and you'll find out that it was Republicans who broke the bank, and it's their bills on the table that are ballooning government. Time for some facts, imbeciles. Ronald Reagan raised the debt ceiling more times than any U.S. president by far.
Yes, he did.
Donald Trump did a grand total of one thing in his entire perverted reign, not related to ruining democracy and installing himself as a dictator, and that was shanghaiing the country to cut himself and his golf buddies fat checks with his big league tax break for billionaires. And it's that mess that's coming home to roost right now. Fact. And fact number 3 is going to be the biggest factor of them all, and that is the fact that one word can accurately sum up Republicans and Republican political ideology.
All right.
Panhandlers. They want to do nothing and get paid for it. Government spending is out of control thanks to Republican administrations who've shoved corporate welfare structure down America's throat. If you look at government spending as a pie chart, corporate welfare is the fattest slice by a mile. No wonder Trump's gut is no longer fits through the standard doorways. So while sane citizens across America are rejoicing with the due collapse of the comedy network called Newsmax, Republicans will don their crocodile tears and cry tyranny and promptly have their legislators, and I use that term lightly, craft up communist-level provisions to enact their bullcrap propaganda as required state programming and market it all under the banner of freedom and limited government. Hooray for the poorly educated.
Brutal. Brutal. But accurate. Richard Ojeda, welcome to the No Notes Club. Dead on. I do have notes on the little interview there, though. Yeah, so gaining popularity. A long time ago, I was talking to somebody who said, I'm going to tell you this. Muslim is the fastest growing religion in the United States of America. In fact, it's the fastest growing religion in the world. I was like, all right, that's interesting. He goes, I would also tell you this. That is because if you are measuring a religion that has very few members compared to one that has a lot, it's easy to say it's the fastest growing. If you have one person that is part of a religion, and in a week, one other person says, all right, I'll join up, that religion doubled its size in a week. When they say they are a growing network, and they don't tell you, something that gives you a sense of how much they're growing. They have told you how much they're growing, and it's not enough to make a real case about it. Delighted to see Newsmax struggling. Delighted to see them getting less corporate protection. Delighted to see that if somebody sues them, they are more likely to be suing only Newsmax, not Newsmax and their daddies. Good. And above all, I'm delighted that that's less potential people to get poisoned by their lies. I got some comments here. I'm 54 now. If anything, I have gotten more liberal since I was 25. Hell yeah. I love to see it. Something else that's happened since you were 25, widespread use of the internet. More people have access to information at low cost, and that makes a difference, makes a huge difference. I realize the internet has also been used to convert people into the cult of MAGA. I know. But by and large, It has been a way for people to open their eyes, to fact check people quickly and figure out who's lying to them. I got to tell you though, when I read something like that, somebody say, "Yeah, no, I've gotten more liberal as time goes on." It gives me a sense of ease, genuinely, and I love to see it. The anti-corporatist, you had a comment about a Pegasus book, and I don't believe I saw that. If you could drop the name, I would love to read it though. And Lord, I hope it's on Audible. I got problems with the company Audible, but I do love listening to it while I constantly try to fix my computer. Yes, the spread of radicalism does track with the spread of broadband. This is true. But it also, that blade cuts the other way, and one is more permanent than the other. Radicalism has a tendency not to survive fact-checking. So, while we have to acknowledge the bad, we should also take advantage of the good, which is the fact that you have search engines now, you have government websites, and you have reliable data sets which are accessible by all. We just need to lean into it harder, which segues lovely into the next segment. Oh, how about that FBI agent who was helping the Russian oligarchs? Ooh, we're doing a whole show on it. Yes, the naked corruption of our system. It's, number one, somehow worse than I thought. It is somehow worse than I thought. And I thought I was damn near nihilistic about it. But how do you react to nihilism? How do you react to corruption? Yeah, you can say nothing matters, or you can say, good, nothing matters. Let's build this the way it ought to be built. We're going to do a show on that. And Dawn, I thank you for the comment. So, free stuff online. We live in the age of the internet, and if you're watching this, you're familiar with the internet. One thing that is underappreciated about the age we live in is the fact that a whole bunch of groups are not waiting around for the governments to say, it's okay to share. It's okay to help someone. It's okay to do this or that. In fact, there are websites now that offer free resources for anything. I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. Just a fun one. If you are like me and you are sick of giving $10 a month to a gym in order to find out that that you don't like doing any of the exercises, or you only really need the information from a class, here's Derby. That right there is a free website. It updates frequently. It's just a bunch of exercises you can do at home. You don't have to join a gym. If you want, you can donate to them. You're not required to. You want to search what exercises you want to do by narrowing it down. I just narrowed it down to no equipment. Just to get good stretches in. That's absolutely a possibility. They have over 1,700 of those. It's just a wild database. And it replaces a thing you might otherwise have to pay for. But okay, that's not exactly life-changing. Fair enough. Here's something I use, BTW, and it is open source alternatives for business software. If you're running a business, in particular if you're trying to start a business, and you are trying to watch your budget, I'm not saying only use open source stuff, but consider checking this out before you invest money into a, $20,000 piece of software made only specifically for the field you're in, and so they have a semi-monopoly on the industry and yada, yada, yada. Well, a lot of times you can avoid those costs by just going to, say, BTW, searching online. I use an open source piece of software for this show. OBS is how we handle routing the feed. Doesn't cost anything. It's designed by a theoretically infinite group of people. It's designed by people that understand software who want to help the world. Why am I telling you about these? I want, first of all, to make corporations in general less powerful. And number two, I want the people who haven't been told often that they have power to see some of the power they do have. I'll feature things with increasing frequency on this channel that are free to use and powerful tools. There's another one that's free public domain artwork. There's another one that's just a list of songs that are free to the public. But understand that you live in a time and have the ability to take advantage of. You live in a time where the internet provides a lot more solutions than powerful people, at least in the United States of America, but frankly I've seen all around the world, are happy to admit. Organizing's easier than it used to be. Getting things done easier than it used to be. There are such things as free software for businesses out there. There's such thing as free software for hobbyists. If we get more and more comfortable using tools like this, we simply grow in power. Didn't give you the what you can do about Newsmax. Let me tell you that now. What you can do about Newsmax, if you're going to leave your cable company, if you're going to switch your cable, and the reason is because you don't like something Fox said, make that hurt as much as it can. Contact your cable company on the way out the door and tell them you're leaving because you disagree with the fact that they play Fox News. I know. Seems simplistic. It is supposed to be. If you are leaving them because of that, don't let them fill in the narrative with why. Don't let them think, people just don't like cable anymore. No, tell them. Just tell them. If you simply don't like the fact that they offer Fox News, tell them that. If there's other right-wing, insane propaganda that you are forced to pay for in order to get, I don't know, Nick at Night, tell them you don't like that about the package. Ask if it's possible to cut it out. Talk to a salesperson. See if they have a package that doesn't include that, but otherwise includes all the things you like. Taking steps like this will hurt them. What can you do about the free stuff? Look around the internet. Type the phrase list of free, and you'll have a wonderful experience. At the very least, at a minimum, you will get what you paid for. And occasionally, you'll be pleasantly treated to an experience that is, I find, better than a lot of commercial products. For example, you can use OBS to run a news station, which at one point I did, or you can use the content online for a news station, I should say. Or you can use OBS, run a personal show. It's a good era to be in, technologically. The crazy, horrible thing about Fox News is that the military goes by popularity in order to be fair, so plays Fox at all of the military bases all over the world. Good God, I did not know that. And good God, that is something I'm going to have a gander at for a future episode, because, ooh, that's straight up propaganda. That's not a good thing for them to be playing. Oof. Also, I'd be curious to know if they could be swayed to do it by popularity of the average, of content watched by the average soldier, because the average soldier is not in the demographic that's watching Fox News. Just speaking in terms of practicality. Well, this has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do, where we try to offer you practical solutions to the problems of the world. I've been your old pal Jake, and I've enjoyed tonight immensely. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.
Oh, no, no, oh, no, no.